Hello, you're watching the Cloud Native Telco Summit, part of our year-round DSP Leaders coverage. I'm Guy Daniels. Now, as we move towards standalone 5G deployments, it is becoming very apparent that Cloud Native is a critical part of the process. However, deciding on a development approach and building a new technology stack is not easy. Orange has been an early adopter and innovator in this area, and to explain more about the work involved is Philippe Ensarguet, who is VP of Software Engineering at Orange. Hello Philippe, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Now, your work really goes back to a project you started in France, Pikio. Why did you decide to launch the Pikio project, and what is its significance here?
Okay. So first, thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be with you talking about this cloud native journey and transformation. So by book, what is Pikio? Pikio is the Europe's first end-to-end 5G SA experimental cloud network that we kicked in June 2021. And the core idea was clearly to prepare ourselves for the future. You certainly know that at Orange, we want to be in the telecom reference industry for the resilient green software and data-based future networks. And if I can just wrap up what is Pikio and what we want to demonstrate, it's basically made of four components. The first component is about the disaggregation. Second one is about virtualization, and to be more specific here, about cloud native implementation, deployment for core, RAN, and tools, and operation, where we wanted to deep dive concretely on resiliency, closed loop reconciliation, and drift management. The third topic was, of course, about automation. And the last one that is really connected with the business is about the on-demand aspect of Pikio and 5G SA stack, where we wanted to having network provisioning directly triggered by the BSS thanks to API. So I would say that for more than nearly 3 years, the Pikio project brings us an invaluable experience and knowledge on the automation of the cloud-native 5G SA networks. And it hasn't been only, I would say, a journey on the technical side, but as well on the methodology, on the culture, on the mindset, and on the skills that are, I would say, absolutely mandatory to future-proof our transformation.
Great. Thanks very much for that overview, Philippe. Now, as I understand it, there's two main elements here. There's the full 5G SA cloud native stack and a new operating model. So can we look a little bit more at the stack? What are the various major components that you're using here?
Okay, so if I just want quickly to break down the Pikio pieces, I would say that for such projects, we rely on very strong partnerships. So first, for the radio side on Open RAN, we picked Mavnir. For the core 5G, we worked with HPE and CASA. And here, the objective was really to rely on network function vendors and industrial that are, I would say, already in the mood of delivering cloud native services. Then we had two deployment strategy because the idea was to demonstrate our ability to deploy this 5G SA network on several environments. So we decided to first target on a hyperscaler deployment, and we did it with AWS, with deployment on cloud and edge. And the second deployment, I would say, target was local on Orange infrastructure and was based on SUSE Rancher technology. For the I would say the local implementation and deployment, we relied on Dell for the servers, and for every experimentation related to the devices, it has been made with Xiaomi. So here are the pieces of, I would say, the Pikio puzzle.
Great, great insights there, Philippe. Can we go into some more detail on some of this? First of all, How did you use the Orange Containers as a Service to deploy your 5G workloads? And what was the technology that was powering this?
Okay, so like I said previously, we had two cases for the deployment strategy. So the first one in the AWS environment was 100% made about EKS clusters. So of course, the managed Kubernetes instances that are deployed in the AWS environment, and all this infrastructure has been 100% delivered and the automated way, thanks to, I would say, Terraform scripts and an orchestrated pipeline that allow us to set up in a very consistent and rapid way the infrastructure. For the Orange Telco Cloud implementation, we did this, like I said previously, with the SUSE Rancher implementation. So it's with RKey A2. And something that is extremely important to understand is that whole, I would say, the 5G core SA stack has been deployed from, I would say, the same infrastructure. And here we rely on two masterpieces that are today, I would say, our backbone in terms of network function deployment strategy, that are GitLabs, I would say, on the lifecycle management. But the things that can be a link between your two parts is that we voluntarily push, I would say, for a GitOps approach. And here we decided to choose Flex CD. That is the operator that is bringing, I would say, the GitOps enablement in terms of deployment and operation of the services. And we did not have much effort to deploy on one target or on the other one. Honestly, it's exactly the same tooling, exactly the same pipeline. And I will give you some insight about the figures in the game that we have using this approach.
That's really interesting, Philippe. Hopefully we'll come on and talk a little bit more about GitOps in a moment. But I just wanted to go back to Kubernetes, because you were mentioning using your managed Kubernetes instances here. Why did you select a Kubernetes cloud native infrastructure, and why is this important?
Basically, we can say that Kubernetes is the culmination of more than 20 years of industry evolution in virtualization, where basically we moved from the hardware to virtual machine world to container world that could perfectly fit into our network ecosystem with the PNF, the physical network function, the VNF, the vehicle network function, and the CNF, the cloud native network function of our telco ecosystem. So for me, what is extremely interesting is that you are all aware about the ongoing momentum in terms of disaggregation of the network and softwareization of the network. So Kubernetes and cloud native ecosystem, for me, is an achievement in terms of effort to overcome the physical barrier, moving from, I would say, bare metal hardware to containers, logical, where we are able to split, I would say, and move and shift from heavy monolithic application and network services toward microservices oriented, I would say, cloud native application. And the last one that is extremely important, it's as well an effort to overcome the ecosystem integration barriers, where basically we moved in the last 20 or 25 years from a very vertical mono vendor approach to, I would say, a more pick and choose based on standard, on open standard in terms of integration on the hardware, on the orchestration, and on the network function. So Kubernetes and cloud native is definitively the future for us into this direction. And the cloud native services for me are made of three masterpieces. We have the container packaging, we have the fact that it's 100% dynamically managed, and it's microservices oriented that allow to envisage differently the way we can scale up and scale down the services. And we all know that scale up and scale down the services in our telco business is about to shut down and power off our infrastructure. So it's about definitively sustainability. And if I want to just end on this, each time I need to talk about cloud native for my executive, I'm just saying basically with cloud native, it works, it's frictionless, we can improve quickly, and we have a high native level of resiliency in our services. It brings new way of delivering, releasing, deploying and operating our services. It's intent-based. It's Git-based in terms of process. We have the auto documentation. We are relying on pull request for the deployment. That is the de facto mode, I would say, in the software world. We have much more flexible deployment thanks to the decoupled design of the services, thanks to the microservices. And like I said, regarding the sustainability, we have an ability to manage the better way the compute density and hardware optimization in terms of, I would say, energy consumption reduction. So it's absolutely a masterpiece. And just to end on this, we all remember that software has eaten the digital world 15 years back. So the IT. So the network is, for me, just one more natural step. And it opened the doors for us for new operating model that are based on the combination of what the cloud native brings in terms of, I would say, resiliency and self and auto-healing capability, and GitOps that is bringing, I would say, the closed loop reconciliation and the drift management. And it's a total different way of envisaging how we can operate the services. And in terms of value for our customer, it's better quality of service, more reactivity in the way, I would say, to troubleshoot it, and it's a way as well to move faster in terms of innovation. And for us internally, it's a better productivity and a better competitivity positioning.
Great, thanks, Philippe. And you mentioned there, and in closing, GitOps, and previously you mentioned you're using Flex CD for GitOps. But I'd like to know a little bit more about GitOps as to what it is exactly and why you choose this process.
I love this question. So to make the story starting easy, I think that we all understood that DevOps is the operating model of the cloud. So GitOps is just the native operating model of the cloud native. So GitOps has been coined by my friend Alexis Richardson, who is the founder of the company called Weaveworks, that is a pioneer in the GitOps, I would say, ecosystem. And the idea that is extremely interesting behind GitOps and the reason why it has been, I would say, invented, is that it allows us to manage at scale very, very large fleet of complex and fragmented services in a consistent manner. If I ask you to deploy one network function services, you can do it easily, I would say, by hand on your keyboard. If now I ask the same for 10, for 100, for 1,000, how can you bring consistency and I would say in an industrial way? So it's all of this about GitOps. So GitOps is defined by 4 core principles that have been expressed in the Open GitOps Manifesto. The first value is about declarative. We want to rely with GitOps in a system managed with a desired state that is expressed declaratively. The second pillar is about the version and the immutable topic. The desired state is stored in a way that enforces immutability, versioning, and retains a complete history of the versioning. So it's about auto-documentation. Third pillar is about pool-based. I would say in a different way than what we can have on traditional CI/CD, where we are on push model from, I would say, the CI/CD system to the target. Here, we are in a pool-based model. So we have software agents that are automatically pulling the desired state declaration from the source, and in this way, it concretely lower down the burden in terms of managing security, connecting your factory and your target in terms of deployment. And the fourth pillar is about the fact that it's continuously reconciled. So the software agent continuously observes the actual system state and attempt to apply the desired state. So it's just what I said in the previous question. Why GitOps for us is a game changer in terms of operating system? It's because when you combine Kubernetes and GitOps, you have the resiliency, you have the self and auto-healing capability, and in our case on PKO with FluxCD, we extend this by closed loop reconciliation and drift management. So it's extremely, extremely interesting. And in terms of methodology, something that for me is as well another game changer in our industry, in a way we want to future-proof our service, is that it's a total different approach, I would say, that in CI/CD. In CI/CD approach, basically, you definitively focus on the build and on the deployment. And most of the time, what is happening is that you did not take into account the right level of automation for your operation. And most of the companies that I'm talking to are hitting what I'm calling the scaling wall, because they are not able to scale without a strong human intervention. And what is interesting with the GitOps approach, it's split the activities in a different way. First, we have a build phase, so on the CI, that is releasing the artifact. It can be artifact in terms of infrastructure, in terms of parameters, in terms of services into, I would say, trusted repo. And then we have the bundling of the deployment and the operation. And in this way, it's extremely interesting to understand that everything that is happening, I would say, after the CI step, you have to imagine that we have a kind of immutable wall where everything after this wall is 100% automated. So it's a total different approach, and by this way, we are able to directly and natively take into account, I would say, the automation, sure, for the deployment, but as well for the operation. And we all know that the operation side is absolutely critical, and in particular in our telecom ecosystem. If I want to be, I would say, even more concrete of the benefits of this cloud-native approach and GitOps approach as a whole in our PKO environment. Let's take the figures. Basically, to set up the whole platform, for instance, in what we deploy in our Orange Telco Cloud infrastructure, it's about 50 servers, and deploying the switches and having all the wire management is approximately less than 2 days. To deploy the whole core operating system infrastructure network rule, including security and the gating, it's roughly 4 hours. Then it's 1 hour to onboard all the application, I would say, that are the middleware of the system. And for the 5G deployment, it's only 15 minutes. It's extremely important to understand that when we shut down our entire platform, we are able to restart in less than 45 minutes. Basically, regarding what we have in the past, it's approximately 5 times quicker than what we were doing previously in the VNF mode on traditional infrastructure as a service. But with a total different level of resiliency, reconciliation ability, and drift management. So the figures and what we and the lesson learned on this scale 1 5G SA deployment has been very, very valuable and paved the road for what is becoming today the de facto network function deploying mode at Orange.
That's fascinating, Philippe. Thanks very much for going into detail there and explaining it, and also the benefits and the reasons why you are taking this approach. I've got one final question for you, because during this year's summit, we've been taking a close look at platform engineering and internal developer environments. But I'd like to ask you, how challenging is it to reconfigure your operations and take advantage of the latest cloud native processes and workflows, because there appears to be something new, some new approach, something new is emerging every few months?
I do agree. Platform engineering is definitively a game changer of our industry. But I think that it's a journey. And if we want to be concrete, honestly, it's progressing on digital and on IT mainly. And we all know that in the telco industry, we have a kind of 5-year sliding window just behind what is happening on the digital, just because the environment is complex. And so, yes, I think that in time it will materialize, because I truly think that we cannot be successful as a telco if we are not reinventing a new business and operational model without proposing a different user experience for all the people that are implied in an end-to-end deployment. So yes, I think that at a moment in time, the platform engineering thing will happen certainly as well in our telco environment, because it's a natural step once you understood that Kubernetes is the engine of your infrastructure. And if you want to be productive and competitive, I guess it's just a question of time.
Great. Well, look, we must leave it there, Philippe. It's good talking with you, and thanks so much for sharing your views and insights with us today.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great summit.